PSG, Luis Enrique's bold move for Ousmane Dembélé following the Newcastle disaster. Luis Enrique is considering changes for the rest of the season. Despite facing criticism, he's been experimenting in training. Recent PSG performances haven't impressed. After a successful 4-2-4 formation against a struggling OM, Enrique's tactics quickly fell short. Clermont held them to a 0-0 draw, gaining more freedom, while Newcastle dominated. Relentless pressing exposed the midfield due to the lack of defensive support from the forwards. Enrique defended his choices but couldn't grasp the criticism. He believes his system isn't too different from the start of the season. Vitinha, considered an attacker, played alongside Randal Kolo Muani, who played as a forward. Dembélé was tested as an attacking midfielder. To address the issues, the lineup needs rethinking. It resembles the times under Pochettino and Galtier when Neymar and Messi joined Mbappé. For the next game against Rennes, Enrique may revert to the 4-3-3 formation with Vitinha, Zaire Emery, and Ugarte. Another option is a 4-2-3-1 formation with Dembélé as a number 10, which excites him as he often played on the wing. This innovation might gain momentum, but it's unclear if it'll use the same attacking quartet or if other players will be added for balance. The Paul Pogba case shocks Europe. Barcelona worries about Vitor Roque. Juventus bids farewell to Pogba. Already Paul Pogba now has clarity. The counter-analysis has confirmed the positive drug test of the French midfielder. He is now facing heavy penalties and sees his career at risk. The Gazzetta dello Sport seems to rejoice in Pogba's misfortune. Pogba out, declares the famous pink newspaper. While Juventus is preparing for his possible dismissal, the club will be able to save €200 million. The Frenchman is preparing to bid farewell to the old lady, and even to the world of football, if a 4-year suspension is confirmed. In Europe, this case is obviously making headlines. Pogba on the brink, writes the newspaper L'Equipe in its inner pages. In England, the terrible verdict is highlighted by the Daily Mirror, while the Sport newspaper considers this news to overshadow the Turin derby that will take place this afternoon. Cold snap in the Vitor Roque transfer saga in Catalonia. FC Barcelona has identified its major January target, as seen on the cover of Mundo Deportivo, and it's none other than Vitor Roque. Barça is determined to bring the Brazilian to the club this winter, especially after Lewandowski's injury. To stay within the confines of La Liga's fair play rules, €40 million will be required. The Queules are expecting this amount from the Libero Fund. In its inside pages, Marca newspaper explains that if the Catalans don't secure this money, they will have to sell players. As a reminder, the Atletico Paranaense striker signed for Barcelona for a fixed fee of €30 million, plus €31 million in variables. He sustained a serious injury and is expected to return by the end of November. In any case, in Catalonia, he is seen as a potential replacement for the absent Robert Lewandowski, who is expected to be out for a month. New twist in Manchester United sale. There's a new development in the Manchester United sale saga. While the sale process of Manchester United has seemed to be at a standstill for several months, Jim Ratcliffe is ready to take action. Competing against a group of Qatari investors led by Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, the head of Ineos is seeking a minority stake of approximately 25% in the Manchester club. While the current owners, the Glazers, are carefully considering this proposal from the American businessman, The Sun reports this Friday that his competitor will not increase his initial offer, estimated at £5 billion. Despite Jim Ratcliffe's renewed interest in Manchester United, the head of Qatar Islamic Bank views the American's move as an attempt to force him to revise his offer upwards. Other factors, such as MU's recent poor results and the concerning debt estimated at over £1 billion that the Manchester club must pay off, also justify his position. On the other hand, the Glazer family has no intention of lowering the selling price, which is set at £6 billion. PSG, Luis Enrique takes on journalists with vigor. On the eve of their trip to Brittany to face Stade Rennais, Paris Saint-Germain held their traditional press conference with Spanish coach Luis Enrique. Just days after the drubbing they received at St. James Park against Newcastle in the second match day of the Champions League Group F, Paris Saint-Germain must now regroup and refocus on upcoming fixtures. It's time to face Stade Rennais at Rosen Park. This Saturday noon, Spanish coach Luis Enrique answered questions from journalists at the Poissy Training Center. For this trip to Brittany, the Red and Blues will still be without Marco Asensio, Presnel Kimpembe, and Nuno Mendes, who recently underwent surgery. We did what we usually do after a match, analyzed deeply, and saw what we can improve. The result doesn't reflect the difference between the two teams at all. Mistakes cost us goals. It was an atypical result. In my career, I've lost by large margins a few times. But this was a strange match, and I liked my team's attitude, he detailed, vigorously defending the European match's performance against the Magpies, despite the painful scoreline. And it was a somewhat fired-up Luis Enrique who appeared at the press conference this Saturday noon, not hesitating to respond firmly to certain questions. He defends Mbappé and Dembélé. Kylian Mbappé, despite a dazzling start to the season, has faced criticism for his recent performances, but Luis Enrique demands a bit more measured judgment from journalists. I remember that 2 or 3 weeks ago, in this same room, I was asked if we were overly dependent on Kylian because he had just scored 7 or 8 goals. Now you're asking me what Kylian needs to do because he hasn't scored in his last few matches. We need to be a bit more normal. He's at 100%. Players go through different states throughout a season, he explained before continuing. He's neither Superman when he scores 8 goals nor a regular player when he doesn't score. It's not all black or white, there are always nuances. Kylian is a vital and decisive player for us. My goal as a coach is to highlight his strengths and not focus on his weaknesses. The same goes for Ousmane Dembélé, who has only provided 1 assist since joining PSG and is still waiting for his first goal. The Haalaand native wants to defend his player. The problem with journalists is that it's either all negative or all positive. I'm happy with Ousmane's performances. I don't think we should put pressure on the players to play with a number 10. You need to change the system depending on the ball's position. You position yourself one way or another. With us, he plays on the wing, but he can play inside, he can come and support. He's a very complete player, ideal for a coach with my philosophy. He will create imbalance, but he was good in Newcastle. I'm very happy with him and his attitude, analyzed the former FC Barcelona coach. Several times, Luis Enrique, irritated and frustrated, wanted to defend his record, his system, and his work with a somewhat forceful tone. Do you know how many years I've been a coach at the highest level? A lot. I try to help the players. Sometimes the coach makes mistakes, sometimes it's the players, it's a team. We have to adapt, and I have to find the best way to play. Football is a game of errors, for everyone. We all make mistakes. I believe in what I see. I'm convinced we will succeed. The game ideas should allow us to dominate the match. We want to win trophies, I'm not afraid to say it. If we don't, I will be the one to blame. And to bounce back, PSG must first reassure observers and supporters tomorrow in Rennes.